Fritz Lang was an Austrian-German filmmaker active during the early to mid-20th century, best known internationally for his 1927 film Metropolis. Lang's oeuvre is nowadays lauded as one of those with the highest influence and importance in film history. Little known to many, Lang's career in film was preceded by his educational background in the visual arts. This background, which included time spent studying painting in his home city, Vienna, likely furthered Lang's interest in emerging artists such as Gustav Klimt and Egon Schiele, the latter of whom was Lang's idol. The influence of artistic developments is evident in several of Lang's films, such as Destiny, Die Nibelungen, and Metropolis. The extent of his passion for art and the importance of this passion for his film career is perhaps, however, evidenced no more than by his declaration of a desire to be cinema's Rembrandt. In this video essay, we will investigate Lang's desire to be cinema's Rembrandt within the context of another, arguably conflicting desire, for film to emerge as a standalone medium. Indeed, alongside the application of artistic influences to his films, Lang also believed in and strongly advocated for the authoritative specificity of film as a standalone medium. Our first step will be to situate our investigation of Lang's ideologies within the scope of the notion of media specificity, a topic which has long divided artists and scholars alike. To cement our argumentation, we will also look in close detail at the incontestable connections between the visual arts and 5 of Lang's films: Destiny, Die Nibelungen, Metropolis, M, and The Testament of Dr. Mabuse. For the sake of our essay, we're going to borrow and apply film theorist Noel Carroll's definition of media specificity. Carroll states that media specificity is the doctrine that each art form has its own distinctive medium. The medium qua essence dictates what is suitable to do with the medium. Simply put, media specificity for Carroll is the belief that for every art form, be it film, music, theatre, or any other, there's a specific set of rules telling us what can and should be done with that art form. Now let's gain some contextual knowledge about media specificity, which can then be used to analyse the ideological desires of Lang we've already outlined. Having decided on a definition for the term, we'll now consider its relevance to Lang's filmmaking. The notion of media specificity was highly discussed during the silent film era, a time when the cinematic medium was struggling to establish itself as an autonomous art form. It's our belief that the concept of media specificity finds its way into a variety of theoretical writings by Lang himself. From these texts, we will extract several claims laying bare his call for the legitimacy of film as an autonomous art form, and what, for him, this legitimacy necessitates. Some of Lang's media-specific concepts for the cinema include medium for teaching, rebirth of the human face, new attitudes towards things take part in the action, and the focus of this video essay, film as an image of its time. Let's explore these concepts with the help of Carroll's definition for media specificity. When we turn to several of Lang's written texts, Carroll's definition seems to correlate with the argumentation the director puts forward. Lang saw film as the rhapsody of the 20th century, the era's true image, the liveliest art form of our time. Thus, he believed in the necessity of film taking up a role in educating the masses, reintroducing us to the image of our reflection, and being the only art form able to act as a moving image of life in motion. He advocated for film not to allow itself to be labelled, but rather to stay the same, a testimony to itself. Film had, unlike any art form before it, an ethical duty to go out into the world, teach all peoples. In other words, Lang clearly had a clear set of ideas about film's significance as an art form and how that art form should be used by 20th century filmmakers. Teach, represent, reflect. Apart from focusing on Lang's own claims, we take into consideration Rudolf Arnheim's views on media specificity. Arnheim's stance regarding the cinematic medium was that he believed cinema's goal should not be to imitate reality, such as through the introduction of sound or colour. He seeks to validate film as an artistic medium and participates in the discourse led by realists regarding the purpose of film. Within the context of media specificity, we will be focusing on Arnheim's claims regarding the relationship between film and the medium of painting. According to him, film does not become art by quoting, painting or sculpture. Painterly elements, such as composition or stylization, should not be copied, but rather they should be translated into a cinematic idiom. Let's go back to a subject we've touched briefly on. As we've seen, his films include many references to other art forms and art movements, such as opera, theatre, Art Deco, Art Nouveau, and Expressionism. Prevalence of visual art forms in his cinematic work can be traced back to his Viennese academic background. Dropping out of his architecture studies in his 20s, Lang instead pursued the study of painting. Due to art developments of the time, artists like Klimt and Schiele were in the spotlight, with the former's glittering ornamental style and the latter's proletarian stance on civilian portrayal. Lang's reverence for Klimt might have influenced his excessive stylization in Die Nibelungen. This connection between Lang and the visual arts showcases his academic and personal interest, as well as knowledge in the field, connecting him and his cinematic choices to the claim of him being cinema's Rembrandt. As common in the paintings of 19th century German painter Caspar David Friedrich, in the Dessler scenes of Destiny, we can see that Lang emulated the romantic framing and composition as present in Caspar David Friedrich's paintings. We can suppose that Arnheim would have disliked this close reference to painting, as it was not serving film to establish itself as art. Looking at Destiny through the framework of film as an image of its time, however, we can justify that in this stage in the history of cinema, film still had to rely on this reference to other art forms. In the second film, we can observe the same tendency. We believe that Die Nibelungen shows considerable artistic influence. Unlike in the first example, it's not this scene's structure and composition which nod to the visual arts, but rather its filmic reproduction of Gustav Klimt's iconic painting from 1908, The Kiss. With Metropolis, we can see a change in referencing painting. In the scene in the catacombs of Metropolis, we see Maria walking around using the light of a candle to guide her. While this strong opposition between the dark background and candlelight alludes to Rembrandt's technique, chiaroscuro, we observe how Lang translated the Rembrandt-style chiaroscuro lighting into the cinematic form. His use of dramatic lighting here serves to underscore the narrative events, and unlike the second example, doesn't solely serve to directly allude to a painting or painterly technique. With this example, we can begin to see how the medium-specific principle laid out by Arnheim aligns with Lang's stylistic choices. 3 years after the Nibelungen, Metropolis works as an image of a change in time that allows cinema to slowly remove itself from its dependence on the painterly medium and to embrace its own autonomy. The early 30s marks another important development in Lang's oeuvre. With his first sound film, M, in 1931 and The Testament of Dr. Mabuse in 1933, Lang embraces the medium specificity of film. He does this by abandoning references to painting in lieu of plot-establishing cinema-specific techniques like close-ups, camera-tracking movement shots, off-screen diegetic space, and the main introduction of sound to his films. As an image of their time, these films can then be said to represent the advancements and subsequent change in film technology. Arnheim heavily argued against the introduction of sound, as it would make film too realistic. For him, the more film becomes closer to reality, the further away from art it is. The product is no more than another reflection of reality, i.e., it's doing nothing new. However, we believe the way Lang uses sound in tandem with previously mentioned cinematic techniques refutes Arnheim's claim. Even though old silent films would appear as more naturalistic while inspiring artistic techniques because of an absence of soundtrack, the way Lang combines new diegetic sound technology with the film medium establishes a new way to perceive reality, and subsequently facilitates the creation of new artistic possibilities, such as where sound largely emanates from off-screen space, or where whistling, as diegetic soundtrack, specific to the film medium, turns into a plot motif and allows for deeper audience understanding. In this video essay, we investigated Lang's desire to be cinema's Rembrandt within the context of another, arguably conflicting desire for film to emerge as a standalone medium. The Weimar cinematic era, in which Lang held the most directorial authority, showcased the development of the film medium in its early stages. This means that as an emerging medium, while it allowed for new techniques and the spectacle of the moving image, film still required the authority that higher still visual art forms such as painting commanded. This claim is evident through the film examples we have chosen. In the first 2 films, he relies on paying close reference to art history through emulating aspects of paintings of the Romanticism and Vienna Succession era, as shown through comparisons with Caspar David Friedrich and Gustav Klimt. With Metropolis, he starts to transform and integrate the references more aptly to the medium. Towards the production of M and The Testament of Dr. Mabuse, Lang transgresses references to art history and employs the newly developed cinematic techniques of sound, as well as plot-establishing film media-specific techniques. It can then be summarized that Fritz Lang's movement away from the medium of painting showcases not only a chronological fluid transition from the still image to the moving image through these painter references, but it also showcases the timeline of development of cinema's media specificity. As time passed, Lang's references to still visual art forms decreased, as film technology developed and the film medium became more established in its own authority as its own higher art form.